Good morning, a special good morning to John and Jittes who are going to be in performance today. What's this? Good morning BSN. It's a Zoom webinar we bring you every week on a Tuesday, lasting from 8 until 8:15 until 8:53. That allows you some minutes to get to your job site or at least have a short break before you start your working day. We are trying to provide you with practical knowledge, practical tools that are surrounding the 4 pillars of leadership, which are the 4 pillars that BSN believes are crucial to make a difference in daily life. But also it's about giving you practical tools that you can apply in your daily life directly after this webinar. Like stated, we will end this webinar at 8:53, but in the meantime, we get some different subjects, and today's subject is named Anticipating Disruptions and Opportunities. It's all about change leadership, the skill to inspire your colleagues, to handle uncertainties, to be creative, and to embrace change while giving your organization the power to innovate. Good Morning BSN is organized by BSN's Impact Center for Great Leadership, which is basically the center that was founded by Business School Netherlands, Hofstede Insight, and is sponsored by the new energy company Chint Global. The Impact Center for Great Leadership is a place where BSN alumni, but also other people, managers and leaders from companies can join in, share insights, and create practical knowledge that could help them immediately to undertake in their own organizations. You can also contact the Impact Center for Great Leadership by using your chat box at this moment, but also there's an email address available on our website. It also is able to provide programs, in-company programs to grow talent and teams in your organization. Today, we are glad to welcome 2 special guests, the speaker of today, running the subject I just addressed. We are glad to have John Lodder joining in and Jittes Jaipuriar Amfi. I hope to have pronounced that correctly, Jittes, but I'm sure you're going to correct on that shortly. But for now, I would like to ask John Lodder to take off with his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Twan. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you. I would like to talk about change, transitions, disruptions, which became a daily phenomena, and especially how come and how did it start? And for me, it started some 65 years ago, when the life cycles from organizations went down as an average from 37.5 years in the 1960s to about every 3 years in the 2020s. Every time organization had to review or renew their strategy, business plan, portfolio, etc., again and again in a shorter time. And now generative AI will probably increase this tempo. What did it mean for employees? An example, the generation baby boomers started to work in a company after school, and most stayed till their retirement in that company. And in those 40 years, they experienced maybe 1, but max 2 minor transitions. But generations X, born in the 1960s, I or Y from 1980, and generation Z from 1995 worked in 7 to 3 different jobs and or companies. They experienced several larger and certainly more complex changes as the baby boomers. And on top, they experienced the pandemic and remote hybrid working as heavy changes to cope with. Many people today feel something like, this goes too fast with the slide for me. Just a second, please. Many people today feel something like, as one transformation is finished, the next change is already there. It feels like chaos for many, According to global research by Gallup this year, 11% of employees are burned out globally. 80% of employees are not engaged in their job, in their work, and 60% of managers are not engaged. However, I strongly believe that chaos is the new normal. The world, geopolitics, generative AI, and so on is changing so fast, and disruptions are all around in most markets. A recent example, the banking sector in the USA. Not to talk about climate change and its effects on organizing. Much is happening around us, and many people feel that as a threat. And my main question then is, why not use chaos as a competitive advantage? How can we turn crisis into a resource? I believe that to conquer chaos, you must first understand what it is. And my take on this difficult issue is that chaos is not an absence of order, it's just more than one order. And you have to play in each order differently according to different rules. Change is a constant. Heraclitus already wrote that in 500 BC. And for me today, reinvention is the new constant for both people and organizations. The only way to survive and thrive for a company is to build a system of embracing change and turn it into your competitive advantage. And that system is what I call reinvention. And if I look at some macro numbers that you see on this slide, you see that 88% of the original Fortune 500 list has already disappeared. Kodak, Toys R Us, Chrome and Raceman in the Netherlands, and so on. 50% of Standard & Poor 500 companies will be gone in 2027, is predicted by InnoSight. And 50% of your competitors are reinventing every 3 years or less. This new normal requires a reinvention mindset, a reinvention culture, and to be crucial success factors for people and organizations. And in the next slide, you see 5 core differences between the old paradigm mindset and the reinvention mindset. If I can have the next slide, please.
Arthur, can you put out the next slide, please? Yes, there we go.
Thank you. Well, you can read it faster as I can talk, so I just highlight 2 of them. The ultimate purpose of the mindset from stability goes to improvement, to find and create what we could have, what could be. What is the unknown perceived by? In the old mindset, by fear. We are afraid for change. But in the reinvention mindset, we are curious. We are looking for how can we change to the better of ourselves or the company. And our personal role during the change is not that of the diligent follower of fashion, but like the kings saying, but a self-reliant go-getter. The next slide shows how often companies reinvent themselves. Thank you. Here you see the 2018, 2020 and 2022 surveys done by the Reinvention Academy, and in 2022 about 55% has to reinvent, that's what they say themselves, every 1 to 3 years. So the question is, what about you? What about your company? In the next slide, you see the 7 pillars of the reinvention framework. It's all about change, concentrated on anticipating change, designing change, and implementing change. Those are 3 important different elements. Every person, every company, every team is has different skills on the three elements. Many are not good at all three. That's why 75% of change projects fail. The next slide provides you, in my opinion, a great tool to see how are you doing on anticipating change, designing change, and implementing change. 5 questions on each. If you answer them that you are good at one of those questions, then you answer with a 0. If you are not good, if you are bad, then you answer with a 5. And if you then count everything, calculate, in the next slide, you see where you can put your score in the upper square, and you can see how you are doing. And you can also see in the 3 squares underneath how much you score on anticipating, designing, and implementing change. And you see how good you are at some, or where maybe you have to improve something. And I think this is an excellent eye-opener for many people. Anyway, as I use it in my practice. And if you look at the last slide I have, the next slide is my last slide, then you see that I had a CEO, a client, with whom I did it on an individual base, and the client scored 60 points in total, and he had the 3 different elements, 20 points, and 22 points. So he had a lot of work to do to make a change in his 450 people company. I hope that I made myself clear. I thank you for your attention, and please let me know how you feel about this intro, and I love to try to answer your questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John. People, please put any questions that you have for John in the chats, but before we're going to answer them, we're going over to Jitesh. Jitesh, please take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Jitesh. I have been in shipping industry for last more than 2 decades. And now I am driving digital transformation using blockchain and AI. I'm here to basically give you an industry perspective of, I'm not learned like professors here. I'm an industry practitioner, so I hope I could give you a different perspective. So if you go to the next slide, please. I'm here to talk about the change and how to anticipate the change. Well, John, he said in his presentation, it cannot be overemphasized that change is what is constant, but and you see that the rising tide lifts all the boats. So when the change is in air, you got to change to be relevant. Otherwise, you cease to exist. I have always been vocal about it. And then I said, why not create a framework called vocal, freshly cooked in the kitchen of my mind for you for this presentation. So through this vocal, I wish I could tell you how to anticipate the change in the corporate world today. And the first one is the voice of customer. V stands for voice of customer. This also cannot be overemphasized, you all know, but I'll give you a bit different perspective of it. So I got to associate myself with a shipping company, which was essentially a subsidiary of a large scale steel manufacturing company. So what used to happen that all those cargoes that steel manufacturing company will give to this subsidiary, and this subsidiary would basically charge a lot of money, they would be in profit, and only after a while the parent company could find out that, hey, we can get competitive bids from others, and then they made it mandatory that there are 3 competitive bids, and then company started feeling the pressure. So the voice of customer, while when you look and hear outside externally, it helps you in your product design, in understanding what is the preference of customer, how the needs are changing, and that all can go in design thinking, in your product roadmap. But after certain time, when you grow up, grow beyond a certain size, then it is very important to also listen to the internal customer. And that's the something very important to us. The second one is the organizational needs. It has got two aspects of it, the internal and external as well. So suppose when everything is going well, uh, well, not everything may be going well, because when the organizations gets on in an auto mode, it sets a lot of complacency, lethargy. People don't welcome change, and you need to pick up on these precursory signs in order to see how the change process has to be driven forward. The external one, suppose a like of your company, one of your competitor is hiring a chief innovation officer or a product manager. They say, hey, something is happening around, we need to change as well. So that helps you to anticipate the factors of change. Competitive landscape, I don't have to tell you, you understand about it. I mean, the competition, as John also said, 60% of the companies in S&P, they will cease to exist. And it's very easy to say that the competitor has started a price war. But basically, if you dig a bit more, and then you may be able to see the innovation on the cost side of the equation. So competitive landscape gives you an ability to anticipate the change. What is agility? I think agility is to become angry. Weird, right? Yes. We all should be angry that how little we think of climate change, how little we provision for climate change when we make policies and a strategy. So agility is to make sure that, whatever you do, it is there going to be relevant, and I will demonstrate it in my next slide through a case as well. One important aspect of agility is, no, be on the last slide, please. I'm yet to finish that. Agility, one important practical implication I would also like to give you that, with so much of digitization around, suppose if you are in a business of developing a platform, your end user may already be utilizing 10, 12, 20 platforms. So they don't want to add on and get lost. So it's very important that whatever product or service offerings you have, that has got an aspect of interoperability. And that's an important dimension of agility as well. And the last, but not the least, the legal and regulatory, I mean, these developments always give you an ability to see and anticipate the change. Next slide, please. So this is a small case study respecting the time slot I had. And I will, this is essentially about customer centricity, which also goes with the change. So this was basically a client, it's a very reputed yachting company, yachting organization with worldwide membership. And they had some legacy system which they wanted to change. So they wanted to drive the digital transformation. If you happen to ever associate with digital transformation journey, you would realize that there are a lot of barriers, and the leaders, they more so talk about it, but when it comes to doing, they don't. So in this particular case, it was very appreciative of that leader that he wanted to drive it. So they came to us. Now we are in business of driving digital transformation and use blockchain and AI. But in this particular case, the client was, with the reason best known to them, they didn't want to use the blockchain. So now the challenge is, it becomes a bit of detour from our core competency, right? And then we had to brainstorm as to, hey, should we do it or should we not do it? Now, because of lack of space here, and I didn't want to clutter my slide, but if I could request you to draw a Venn diagram in your mind, A and B, where A says blockchain, B says no blockchain, but the intersection part of the two the Venn diagram is the digitalization. So we realize that we are not here to push our product to the market, but we are here to solve the challenges of tomorrow, the challenges the customer faces. And that is essentially is digital transformation. Technology is just an enabler. And then we pursued that project and we did very well and customer was very happy. And now we are even thinking of engaging at a bigger level project, which can have huge commercial gains. So through this slide, it is important to understand, and I wanted to illustrate that the customer is at the heart of your innovation in your change management program. You change your product or service offerings, it is only to serve the customer. So if that end goal is not met, then basically the core competency may have little value. So if you go to my next slide, I have got 3 points I have summed up basically to 3 takeaways, and that the first one is the core competency without agility has little meaning. In fact, I will go on to say that agility should be one of your biggest core competency, right? If you have that, you would always succeed. Then the content is king. You may boast about your product, you may boast about your service offerings, but if it is not relevant, if it is not contextual, if it is not really solving the problem of today or tomorrow, then it may not be accepted. And on the same line, you may boast a lot about your product and service, but it is the customer who decides the value. The perceived value can only be decided by the customer. And last but not the least, communicate your ideas and your innovation to your shareholders, to your investors. Communicate the success of what you are doing to your team members. You need to organize success to them. You need to show that it is going to work and we are going to be successful. And last but not the least, communicate your value propositions to the market, to the customers, and so on and so forth. So I will stop here, and I'm happy to answer if there be any question, and any follow-up inquiry I can also be reached out to. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jires. Like told, you can ask a question over the chat. That's available, but you can also raise your hand if you do have a question. And I see a hand raised by Riwimbo. Riwimbo, would you like to ask a question? Okay. No comments so far, so I will ask my first question to you, Jires. If you want to drive the change, but it's not working, what can you do?
Well, first of all, not all change is good. So you have to, and that's where I call something a car mod, where C is change what you can, A is accept what you cannot change, and R is rise above the challenge which you can change. So if answering to the question which you asked, if the change is not working, first of all, we need to see whether that change is different. And if it is not working, probably do we have a DNA of a change? I was just talking to somebody and he gave a very nice insight that, you know, how we drive the profit, that profit is, which is coming on our income statement, that's a litmus test of your efficiency. But how do you arrive at that figure? That may be your culture. So do we have a change culture? Do we have DNA of change? So we need to basically, it's not that simple. We need to investigate as to, first of all, the change which we are trying to do, is that the real desired outcome? Is it really necessary? And second, do we have a DNA of change? And are we having the right vehicles to drive that change process?
That makes sense. John, over to you. So looking at your sheets, there was somewhere a picture inside of it that you have to live with chaos and then reinvent your organization over a couple years of time. Looking at the picture, I saw that more than 50% request change within a year or within at least 2 or 3 years. After reinventing the world for the first time. That would leave us not a lot of time to adapt culture, implement like digital transformation tools and that kind of stuff. So John, please elaborate how you can prepare your organization for that sort of drastic change.
That's for me. Let me say two things. My personal opinion is, and I write a monthly column about management change and so. My belief is that most managers are not capable to lead change. 75% of change projects fail, and that is why it's all done top down. People are not heard. Employees are not heard. They, in the boardroom, they think of some master plan, they throw it in the organization, and people have to do things. You have to talk, communicate with your people from the beginning. I think there should be some change done on whatever subject, and you have to communicate and ask opinions. Involve the people by already the anticipating, already the designing, and then the implementing of change. And then it will work. Yeah, there are so many things going on in the world or in your market that you have to be aware of it. You cannot follow every trend. There are so many trends. You have to focus on a certain trend that's important for your company and focus on that with your people. And you can do that trapped in teams and so on. But if you talk, I don't believe in resistance to change, what we talk about a lot. People are not born to resist change. As a baby, you are open for change. So talk with your people in an open way, and in your teams speak as if the future is already there. That creates creativity, that creates common innovations or ideas or whatever, and co-create positive realities of what you want it to be together, not from the top to the down point of the employees. Dialogue instead of discussion. Those are some thoughts I have about how make change fun, how make change nice and appreciated, and challenge your people to think and to come up with ideas. That would be my thinking.
Thank you so much, John. Over to Jidda. So you've learned from John now that at least some form of co-creation, working bottom up, trying to create that culture on the inside that provides you with, let's say, the mindset to implement change. You've mentioned in your presentation that content is king, and then the context is God. Does that add something to the answer that John gave?
No, he's absolutely right, and he has hit the nail. Basically, that culture of change has to be there. Sometimes, many a times, I wonder. Imagine an organization where everybody is ready to change personally as well as professionally. every employee. Now, the capacity of that organization to change, if you want to quantify that, would that be an aggregation of all those employees' individual capacity to change? So would it be a bottom-up approach, or irrespective of their ability to change, it will be a top-down approach if there is a leader who drives the change? And this can be a debatable, but it can be an interesting debate. But I personally feel that either the culture is there or not there, and it takes a little bit of time to be there in order to sort of come to a point where you could accept the change. So it is more to do with the culture than anything else, I would assume, and it takes, and that's where leadership comes to slowly start building that culture of change where people could welcome it. Nobody likes change, drastic change for sure. And one last thing which I would like to say, if I may, that it is not the change which is important. One has to be very careful about the pace of change. The pace of change vis-a-vis the life cycle of the organization. If you are at a scale-up, a startup stage, and the pace of change is very fast, which is not sustainable enough to your cost structure, it can be very, very dangerous. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay. John, do you want to say something about that?
As I hear it, we have a different idea about change and the pace of change and the top-down or bottom-up or together co-creation. But a very important point that Jitesh made is the culture. And I realized that the culture in Asia is more top-down as the culture in Western Europe, for instance. I worked a lot with entrepreneurs, and we made big programs with different cultures, and there you see how difficult it is to get people from different cultures in the same, how to say, spirit, mood, to adapt change, to adapt the motivation to change. And yeah, for me, there's something like we go to school, and the first thing you learn is to sit still. And that's what you learn for 10 years or something, and be quiet and give answers that the teacher asks you. That's where you unlearn to change. You learn at school to color between the lines as a child, and then as an adult, you were trained by your company to think about out of the box, for instance. You know, and those are discrepancies in education and culture that are difficult to, but not impossible to collaborate together on it. But it starts with differences.
Makes sense, John. Thank you so much. We're coming close to an end of this webinar today. Are there any people in the audience that still have a question to ask or a remark to make? I see nobody flagging, so I'm going to thank Jitesh, John, and all the people that were on the webinar today. I would love to see you in one of the next webinars that are, as told, going to take place every Tuesday morning from 8:15 until 8:53.
Can I make a request?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, this is Yotam Kandawire. Good morning. It's Yotam Kandawire from Zambia.
Good morning, welcome.
Okay, I've been following the discussion and also the presentation that that relevant presenters have been making. I just wanted to make maybe a request from BSN, if it is possible that this discussion can be made maybe twice a week. And also another request that I would want to make is it possible to share the presentations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jot. I think going to twice a week will be a bit much at this stage. So having one once a week is already a challenge. You can understand there's a bit of organization behind this sort of Zoom-webinars. We discussed sharing the presentations of Jittes and John earlier on in this Zoom-webinar. And the ones that provide us with our emails, we are able to send over the presentations. So please do so if you want the presentations sent to you, and we will share them at a later moment in time, but we are still working on that. We will, we have taped the video, so we will share that in any kind of way. So you can look back on all the Zoom-webinars that were done. So thank you for your question. Most of it is arranged for the other ones are coming shortly. Are there any others that would like to still ask a question? So, well, we're close to the end. We're just 2 minutes off. Thank you all for participating today. Thanks again, John and Jittes, for your input. It was very interesting to learn how change works in this modern world, I would say. So thank you for all the insights. And of course, I would like to see you back in a Zoom-webinar shortly. I think Annette has still got a question. Annette, you raised your hand. Okay, no question from you. Thank you all for participating. Hope to see you back next Tuesday. For now, have a great working day and a great working week. Thank you so much.